I have a twin sister, and she's pretty well off. She went to an Ivy League college, and she got a very good paying job. But when my parents basically forced me to go down her path, I tried to go to a nice college with her. But I realized very quickly I did not belong there. But that did not stop me from realizing, well, I fell in love with this guy named Henry. And we end up getting married, but long story short, he does something that absolutely devastates me. And yes, it involves my twin sister, Isa.
Sometimes we never know when our close ones become our enemies, and in my case it was my twin, my soul sister, and my first ever best friend. I would like to believe it was a blessing in disguise, and she has managed to give me a once-in-a-lifetime experience that changed my life. Hi, I'm Gabriella, aka Gabby, and my sister Isabella, aka Isa. We're non-identical twins and have been inseparable ever since we were born. My twin has been my best friend, gifted from God since birth, but everything escalated quickly towards my downfall after she got married. This is how it all started. 10 years ago, my mom was so depressed when our dad passed, so we all shifted from New York to Louisiana and started our lives from a different perspective, a new beginning. We were enrolled in grade 12 at a new school, and when we passed the schooling, we both turned 18 and we were supposed to be looking forward to do our college majors. But I can't decide yet because I just want to be productive enough to keep my life simple and peaceful. Well, but Isa had other plans. She was not at all like me. She was a go-getter, ambitious, decisive, hardworking, competitive, and focused, unlike me, who is lost every time and so indecisive and confused about everything in life. I sometimes felt a little inferior to her, but then I remembered that I did not have the same goals in my life. Mama always tells me to learn from her, but I'm not interested in whatever she aspires to be. And I can't lie to myself about this, but Mama does not like it. So when Isa was successful in securing admission to the Ivy League, I was also sent away along with her so that maybe I could learn something from her. If at least I could not be equal. And I did not protest because at some point we all tend to get affected by peer pressure, you know? And in my case, I was influenced by my sister Isa. But after attending the orientation at the college before admission, even an unsure person like me was at least sure of one thing. I do not belong here. Not at a place like this, even though I did not know where I actually do belong. After orientation, we were both tired and thought to grab a bite along with a coffee at a roadside cafe. When I took a bite, I found it a little off. I complained, but Isa could tell the difference anyways, and I knew the dish did not taste authentic, and the chef did not know how to cook it. At that moment, I figured out where my interests lie, so I got myself enrolled in culinary school. I understood the taste, the smells, and the complex combinations and was able to distinguish between them. And next year, I managed to get a job at a fairly decent restaurant even. I love to cook and serve people, and I was happy to see them satisfied by my meals. It has been 3 years since I was employed. On the other hand, my twin, Isabella, was doing a great job since she had remarkable academic achievements and passed with absolute flying colors that made our family proud, including me. She had a get-together party after graduation with her friends, and I suggested to her that my restaurant could give her some offers that I would receive as an incentive. I would love to spend it on her. I made all the arrangements at the restaurant where I was employed. She introduced me to all of her friends, and little did I know that I would come across the love of my life, Henry. Isa introduced us to each other. I had no idea when I first met him that he looked a little goofy and shy. Isa told me that it was very unusual of him because he's exactly the opposite, just like Isa herself. After the party was over, Isa confessed that she had a crush on him. We both planned a date for her, so I arranged a candlelit dinner date at the restaurant. I even cooked their favorite meal and reserved the best table. As per the plan, I was waiting for them to come, but they never showed. I tried to call her multiple times, but she did not answer. Then I saw Isa drunk, crying. She told me that Henry does not reciprocate her feelings, and she liked him because they had the same plans and ambitions in life, and dedication towards their goal. To console her, I cooked her our comfort meal from when we used to have it in our childhood. Though she was devastated and in absolute tears, she devoured it, which cheered up her mood, and that night I stayed with her in my rented room. When she fell asleep, my phone rang, and to my surprise, it was Henry. And I hung up because she was sleeping, so I just texted him, shot him a text message. He told me to come down. I saw Henry standing on the premises and waving his hand to me to come downstairs through the window. So I went downstairs. He held me by my hand. My heartbeat stopped because now I knew why he rejected Isa. Seeing him like this was such a heartfelt gesture that it swept me off my feet. I blushed scarlet, but after a few moments I realized what Isa would feel like when she discovers this. I took my hand back from his tight grip and lowered my gaze, unable to decide how to respond, and he stood up looking at me with unsurety. I told Henry that I was scared of breaking Isa's heart, although I was not responsible for this, so I need to talk to her first, but she is still not over her heartbreak. Once she moves on with her life, I'll tell her everything about him, and he said that at least I can get into a relationship with him and keep it a secret until I get the right time to break this to her. It was a great idea. We went to the movies and went on a few dates together, and we texted every single hour. It's been 5 days since we started dating, and one day when I met him, I was taken aback by Henry, because he said that he really liked the yellow ruffled dress that I wore last Saturday. Well, it was shocking because firstly, I never met him on the weekends since I'm overworked on these days. Secondly, it's been only 5 days of our relationship, so what? And thirdly, such a trendy attire was owned by Isabella, unlike me. I remember she bought it on a sale. I was lost in my thoughts as I was confused about me and Henry and wanted to seek a suggestion about his recent behavior. After a few days, Isabella came excitedly and hugged me so tight that it crushed my bones. Somehow I freed myself from her, and she told me that she got a job at a reputed firm and it is posted as a financial advisor there. I was happy for her, seeing her in high spirits, and I thought it must be the right time to tell her something I had been dying to tell her for oh so long, because I knew her too well, and so she does. We had a telepathic connection, so most of the time I could sense her emotions, and that is why it is important whatever she feels about me. Also, she's my best friend, so it was hard not to share things with her, hence gathering my courage. I nervously confessed absolutely everything about me, Henry, scared of how she would react, but I sighed when it saw a smile. I also asked about the doubt that I had towards Henry, that he complimented me on a yellow dress, but it was he who was mistaken, because she was the one wearing it. She laughed it off, saying he might have gotten confused since they went to a mutual friend's birthday party, and she said that I'm worrying too much and advised me to go ahead since he's such a nice guy. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story has quite a bit of updates, and if you think Henry and that dress was a little confusing, oh, you've seen nothing yet. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel for daily videos if you're into this sort of thing, and let's jump directly into update number 1. Hey guys, I have great news to share, but I'm a little confused this time. So please help me determine if my fears are true or if I'm just being skeptical. It's been 3 years since we got married and were blessed with a girl, Anne, who's 2 years of age. Isabella announced her marriage, and she was marrying her boss, who was the owner of some company that she worked for. Unlike mine, her wedding was luxurious, classy, yet intimate, with limited guestings. Isa tried her best to keep the guest list as minimal as possible. She wanted her wedding to be private. I was glad she moved on because I still remember the 3 years before Henry gave me a ring, and expressed their desire to marry me soon. Mama and Grandma got emotional, but Isa's expression remained unchanged, and I sensed something off about her. I was hoping she was fine, but deep down I knew she forced herself to fake that smile. I got a little anxious when he slid that ring through my fingers, but I brushed it off, thinking entering this new phase might be the reason. So, me and Henry have dated for almost 3 months since our marriage commenced. That night I saw that Isabella could not sleep well. Somehow I gathered the courage to talk to her, and she said she was fine. Nervously, I asked if she was dating someone. Thankfully, she replied that she was seeing someone who was from her workplace. Now I'm relieved to see her getting married, and she won't be lonely any longer. She moved to another part of the city and now lives in a villa. Meanwhile, when our daughter Anne was about to turn 3 years old in a month, Henry was transferred and promoted to another company. It was a pleasant surprise to find that he works for Isa's husband. Henry was ambitious about climbing the corporate ladder, and we shifted as well. I was thrilled to have Isa as my neighbor. I later got to know through her husband that Henry was not hired because of his skills and experience, but because Isa requested her husband hire him as her personal secretary since family members are more reliable. Isa's husband was an owner, and she was the CEO of the company. Everything was too good to be true, to be honest, as if someone had waved this magical wand that turned everything miraculously wonderful. Well, so much goodness could not last long, and we got the news that Isa's husband had passed away in a car accident. She looked devastated, and I felt immense grief for her since I could do nothing but, try to not let her feel so lonely. Despite all that, she was still strong enough to not let her career or the company get affected. All her husband's shares were transferred to her, and now she's the owner and has well maintained the stocks of the company. Henry became her CEO and was dedicated to her. He had become her best friend, her confidant. But on the other hand, I was happy for her, while on the other, I felt like I was being third-wheeled while hanging around them. They seemed to forget me while we were all together, and in addition to this, Henry has been acting so differently with me. He was hard on me the entire time, always on a business trip with Isa. He starts avoiding my calls and text messages, and not only that, but he also calls out her name to address me. Whenever I come close, he shrugs me off, and I felt pathetic for being rejected while I was taking care of our daughter Anne, while secretly getting begrudged against Isa. Well, I'll update you guys soon. Update number 2. Thanks, guys, for your views on my story, and unfortunately my fears turned out to be true. My sister was actually cheating on me with my husband. It's been a little late since the last update because my daughter Anne was excessively sick as she stole the ice cream from the fridge while suffering from a cold, and she was diagnosed with pneumonia, so I stayed at the hospital for about 2 weeks. When I came home, I found Isa holding a cake and Henry holding balloons with our family and friends. It was a party for the birthday. She turned 3 this year. I was happy when I saw Henry was back as before. He behaved so nicely that it was hard to believe. After the party, Mama left, and Henry went to drop her off at the airport. Isa stayed with me that night to spend time with Anne, and I tried telling her about my concern and even confessed how Henry had been avoiding me for a few months like a plague. She told me, don't you worry about that. After a few weeks, Henry was on an international business trip. He was leaving me alone with Anne. But he never told me that he would be going with Isa. I thought he would be alone or with someone from his department. One day I was doing the laundry and found a locket inside of Henry's shirt. It was strange to find out why Henry would be carrying such personal things about Isa with him. I did not understand how I was supposed to feel about it, but it was expensive, so I kept it safe in my purse, and also it's her birthday this week, so I brought a present for her as well. I went a day before to surprise her since she would be busier on her birthday and would try to know what she was having in her mind. As I reached her place, it had changed a lot since her husband passed. It did not seem to be well maintained at all. I pushed through the gate to make my way in, and I thought of ringing the doorbell first, but the gates were not locked, so I entered. It was empty, but looked well kept and pretty clean. I went ahead to search my way and suddenly heard the noise of chatters echoing. I followed them and found Isa sitting and laughing and gossiping with Henry. They were in a pool with a floating breakfast table. I was shocked to find Henry had already come up from this business trip and did not bother to inform me. I felt a pang of jealousy, watching them get so lost in each other, and they failed to notice me standing in front of them. When I called out, I felt unwelcome like an outsider who intruded on their space. When Isa came out of the pool, I saw how both of them were physically comfortable with each other. I asked Henry why he did not bother to inform me that he's returned. He said he just came 5 hours ago and landed at her place for some rest because he has to put up with some work with her for the next meeting. But deep down, I knew there was no point in questioning him further since the truth is right there in front of my own eyes and his actions were already screaming red flag. Why should I bother with his words? I was getting anxious, trying to brace myself to face my fears come true. I fished out the pendant from my purse, handed it to Isa, and told her that a pendant was found in Henry's shirt pocket. Henry sensed it coming and tried to justify the fact that he was drunk. I threw the present in the pool, kicked their breakfast floating on it, and I walked out, saying that I was going to leave them forever, banging the door loudly behind me. Update number 3. Guys, I don't know what to do. Please help me out. I'm typing this down after giving up searching for a solution anywhere and everywhere and not finding it. So, I told you in my last update about my sister cheating on my husband, and I was so disgusted. It was such a bizarre thought of finding out my twin sister was cheating on me with my husband that it formed a little bile in my throat and I threw up. I haven't let Henry come home since last week, and I drink only on occasion, but this week I've been drinking way too much to numb my feelings. I gathered my courage to take the hardest decision of my life, divorcing Henry, and currently I am not in a good condition to take proper care of Anne while dealing with heartbreak. So I decided to drop her off at Mama's place. So I packed my stuff along with Anne's and went to call Mama to drop her off at the place to let her stay away from this mess. Meanwhile, I would deal with them and claim divorce to cut all my ties. I started planning to go to court tomorrow morning to file divorce against him. Before acting upon it, I saw Henry arrive. I denied him entry into my home, but he pushed the gates to make his way inside as he got the papers due to Isabella, who was well ahead of the plans and could easily afford a lawyer on an urgent basis. I knew he had filed for divorce and handed me those papers, and I was looking forward to signing them. My vision cleared, and I tried to make sense of what was written on them, but finally he said that these were the papers where he also claimed custody of Anne, along with divorce, and she would live with him. All my hangovers vanished in just seconds when I heard Anne's name up for custody. I was stunned. I noticed that he was not alone. He brought someone with him. He introduced me to that person, saying that he was his lawyer and would deal with the case. I was embarrassed for acting recklessly out of anger. Also, looking at my current shattered state, the lawyer certainly doubted my parenting skills, and not being independent made things easier to help him claim custody over our daughter, and said that from now on he would take care of her. I laughed, saying when did he realize that he had also had a responsibility towards her, because since the past few months he had somewhat forgotten that he had a family to take care of, while he was outside on his business trips. He didn't even argue. He caught hold of Anne, and she cried, and I tried to stop him, but I could not because the alcohol hit me hard as my head started spinning, and my senses were slowing down. He left along with her, and I did not know where he took her, but I could stand straight and think. He told me that he would wait for me to meet him at the court, and I was so depressed with, her, that I could not think of any way out to get her. I got up to wash my face, but was horrified to look at my state when I stood in front of that bathroom mirror. I looked no better than a maniac or a drug junkie. My hair was disheveled, and I concluded that the lawyer who had already witnessed me in my shattered state would probably favor Henry and might also give him custody of my daughter. I tried to think, but I could not comprehend how I ended up like this or what's wrong. I committed to witnessing this. I dialed many lawyers, but they all were charging hefty amounts that I could not even come close to paying. Adding up to my entire lifetime savings, trying to find out about loans or schemes that could help, I could not count how much time has passed. I woke up the next morning with my head spinning. Helpless, I later missed Anne, so I dialed Henry's number, which he answered. I asked him about my daughter and where he took her, and he said that she's fine because she's with him now. So I asked where he was, and he paused for a minute and said, "He's at Isabella's." I was furious. I got up without even thinking. I got myself a taxi, and within 5 minutes I was shouting and cursing. Then I saw both of them standing. I asked about Anne, but Henry told me she was already asleep. I just threw these tantrums at him for pretending to be a good dad. I cursed Isabella, but Henry stood up in her defense and wished hell upon him. I also told him the reason for my hatred. He was the person who asked me to be his wife and put that ring on my finger. He was the person who took vows to stay with me for good and evil. It was he who has to be held responsible for not cheating on me and not Isabella. I further added that I do not believe in the idea of a woman snatching another man. It's a man who has the entire fault. Just like every other man, Henry was not a trophy or an object meant to be taken away. He cannot excuse himself by saying that he got carried away, etc. He has his own mind. He's a grown-up who can think of his own pros and cons, but he turned out to be a characterless person without integrity. When it come to Isa, I told her that for wanting Henry, all I could do was feel pity for her. Not at the hate of a go-getter like Isabella, who was so desperate for a man that she took her own sister's husband. I clarified that my hatred for her was only for taking my child away from me. Isa gets triggered by this, and Henry was pushing me out. While leaving, I heard Isa yelling to meet after her at the court next week. And she would make sure that I would lose custody. Updates number 4. Hey guys, I want to thank you really quickly for the suggestions. I really appreciate your concern, but maybe the universe has other plans to teach us that we can do what we never thought. Mama had a lawyer that she arranged, but unfortunately she failed to get me custody. But I thank them both for their support and efforts. So, my twin sister Isabella and Henry were successful in claiming custody of little Anne, since I was just a housewife and not financially independent. It was really hard for me, but I was glad Mama supported me the entire time and motivated me to stay strong and fight back against the injustice I faced. I soon started working in a restaurant. The pay was so little. A little less in the beginning at least, but it was enough to encourage me to work hard. I worked day and night, tirelessly, as it kept my mind away from my heartbreak and betrayal, and as a result I started drinking less and less. I went to meet Anne, but I don't want to look at Henry and Isa. There was no point in having any sort of contact with them. And suddenly, someone unexpected came across me. I saw Isabella having lunch at a restaurant where I work. I wished to add a bit of poison to her meal for what she had done to me. After some time, I saw her getting hyper over something, and all I could hear was Henry, because my rich twin sister cheated on me with my husband, and my husband took my daughter, so I promised to pay them back. So I thought of a plan and tipped the waitress to spill the drinks on her and bring her phone. In the meantime, she went to the washroom to clean it up. I got a hold of her phone, and thankfully it was a face lock. How ironic. And I got access. I tried to read out all the conversations and look through the gallery for anything that could give me a hint of what she was up to, and it was photos of some documents and PDFs with tons of threats and final warnings from Henry. It took me 2 to 3 minutes to get an idea. Isa could be back any moment from the washroom, so I handed the phone back and I took an urgent leave from work and started following her when she left the place, stopping until she reached her home. I could not follow her inside, but was so happy that her room was near the window, which was near the house's border. She switched on the TV and went inside the kitchen, but her phone screen started blinking. She picked me up, and I tried to hear what she was saying and up to, but I could see her doing touch-ups and wearing a jacket. She came out after some time, still talking on the phone while sitting in her car, saying she was planning to meet at Z Company headquarters. I thought it was a good opportunity, so I took a taxi home and got dressed according to the attire that could possibly match her taste, since I only had one blazer that she gifted me, which was quite expensive, and the rest were just formal clothing. The only thing that was missing to distinguish me from her was my confidence. I reached the place finally and tried to pretend that I knew which way to go and lifted my chin up. I was glad no one paid much attention. They just greeted me and went back to their work. And I did not know which was her cabin. I just guessed at some lily plants, knowing that was her favorite. Thankfully, some things don't change, and I saw her nameplate on the door. I locked myself in and started searching for evidence after evidence, but I could not. Then I saw a small hidden drawer under the table, and I went through the files, and they were similar to what I saw in her chats and conversation gallery. I clicked on the photos without thinking, and I was scared of Henry being around or with her, and I sneaked out of the office quietly. I've gone through all the pictures I've clicked, and all I could understand was that her company was failing to pay the taxes because, in some other document, embezzlement of the funds was done. It has to be Henry because of his signature on all of it. I went to a lawyer who had taken my previous case, and I tried to reach her as soon as possible. It would be a few hours before anyone would know it was me who sneaked into her office. Henry has custody of Anne, and he has not married Isabel yet. So being a biological mother, I claimed full custody of Anne and filed a case against Henry for his illegal financial fraud. Present after 2 months. Henry and Isabel had a tussle against each other, and I'm here to tell you about that. And he was imprisoned. He tried to trap Isabella along with him, and her company's stocks fell, and her business went through a tough time, and she lost a family that she always craved, especially for a child, and betrayed by the man she always loved the most. Trying to pull her into the mess he's dealing with, and I got Anne back and had a decent income from a cooking at the restaurant to be financially independent to fulfill her needs. And recently started a new service, which is doing great. That's all the updates for now, guys. Thank you so much.
Wow, okay, so this story took a huge turn towards the end. Honestly, I thought OP was basically not going to get Anne back. It wasn't looking very promising, but it turns out Henry was a lot more crooked than I thought, and he was basically stealing or involved in some sort of fraud, and OP absolutely got him. Let me know your thoughts about this story though. It did have a lot of drama involved in it, and being twin sisters, I can't imagine their relationship recovering from this. I want to know from you guys in the comment section down below though, who is at blame more for this relationship of OP just going sour? Is it Henry or is it Isabel? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Guys, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. If you guys want to be a part of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!